Hello and welcome to Channels Book Club. I am Olakunle Kasumo. Let's get today's show started with a new book written by Keith Richards, who is a man that needs little introduction in Nigeria's business community. After being a top CEO of blue chip companies and mentor to many young professionals, he finally put his story, experiences, thoughts, and ideas in a book. It was recently released to the public at an event in Lagos, southwest of Nigeria. Here's a report.
It's a great pleasure to be able to say that this book and Keith Richards are now on our list.
Friends of the author, Keith Richards, as well as acquaintances and book lovers, are here for the launch. Mr. Richards reads excerpts from his book, Not Quite the Insider, which details his experiences in corporate Nigeria.
Given the prominence of IEA, that was the company, and the turbulence of our own situation, it always seemed likely that sooner or later I would have the pleasure of dealing with this group of gentlemen. Normally, informal security would be delegated to a Nigerian manager, but in this case, at the insistence of Bakassi's leader in Aba, Como, it would be my responsibility to deal direct with him. Onwuke, that's the other shareholders, and his team had approached Bakassi to help throw us out of the factory, making all sorts of the usual allegations. However, even as lawless as a group as Bakassi would tend to think twice about attacking foreigners for fear of the additional exposure this might lead to. And I suspect too that Como quite fancied the idea of intimidating Onocha personally, hence his insistence on a personal meeting. I was certainly not going to venture into his territory, and as they were usually active late in the day, I invited him to the house in the evening. Being very hospitable, I naturally invited him to have a drink and a seat. I remember well that his lieutenants were not allowed to sit or to drink, but stood behind him. Discipline, if that's what you would call it, was tight. Hot drink was duly offered and accepted, and we sat facing each other over the dining table in my living area as he placed his machete on the table. Funnily enough, I don't remember feeling his behavior as particularly aggressive. In fact, he appeared to be tired and slightly sluggish, probably weed-related, and his eyes were a bit red-rimmed. He was probably a bit nonplussed at being offered a drink and hadn't expected social pleasantries, and his exposure to expatriates would have been limited. He wasn't an exceptionally large man, but well-built, but his English was certainly reasonable. And I do remember thinking that this was a surreal moment and wondering how many people he had ordered killed, and indeed, how many had died directly by his hand.
Political activist, teacher, hunter, and wine connoisseur, Professor Wole Soyinka.
The book reviewer, Nobel laureate, and social crusader Wole Soyinka reads of the author, noting similarities in their individual journeys through life.
Never quite an insider. Memoirs of a Ghetto Blaster. We mostly see that peculiar species known as, before I continue, it's amazing, he picked on a passage, which in fact I cite in here. I'm getting worried about you, because many similarities begin to worry me. Anyway, we mostly see that peculiar species, the expatriate. We see them as they really are, or if you prefer, see them as they be. On festive occasions, a wedding, child naming ceremony, retirement party, chieftaincy conferment, funeral outing, simply on social occasions. I rely mostly, of course, on the testimony of media photos when they are tugged out in local traditional dress, registering varying degrees of adjustment, unease, discomfort, self-mockery, and or sense of duty, and capacity for endurance. At such occasions, you can see it written on their faces. You just wait until my pub mates in Shropshire see me in this costume. Actually, it's more likely to read, if you ever catch me again in this Agbada of Bavariga outfit, call me a so and so and so. You can virtually read on their faces images of that longed-for release when they can get back to some rational office clothing or after-hours tennis shorts at the club, nursing a cold beer or perhaps Guinness, since we are largely in Guinness territory here, going by the author's business and bibulant affiliations.
The Nobel laureate seizes the opportunity to take a swipe at fake news peddlers.
This is going to take place. I warn all of you who invite me to events from here on, not just now, but it began some time ago, that before any event, before I play my role in any public event, there will always be this preliminary, the denunciation of something that goes mostly by social media, the fount origin of fake news. I don't care whether it's a wedding, a funeral, child naming ceremony, international caucus of philosophers, seers, prophets, church service, funerals, whatever it is, any opportunity which I have, I am going to denounce, and preferably with details of the latest atrocity committed by this thing, this abused, much abused medium, because it's really a positive medium, so I shouldn't really denigrate it. This blog apparently had been sitting there for years, and it claims to be a blog dedicated to education, to research, to job provision, etc., etc., etc. And so there it is, a supposed source of reliable information. Welcome to SB Blog, news updates on education, sport, entertainment, articles and stories, politics, job tips, research, and lots more. 40 famous quotes. Out of 40, 27 were false, are false. Some of them containing quotes which I could never possibly utter in my existence, since these particular, the worst ones actually are very disrespectful of the female gender. And this has been sitting on internet for years, and people have been using this kind of page as a reliable source of information to the extent that it's actually taken out by bank and used in advertisement. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're at war. And I don't care how long, how much of my time it takes. I don't care how casual or dilettantish organizations, what kind of attitude they take of indifference, thinking maybe it doesn't matter. For some of us, it does matter. And if it's a life and death struggle, then that is exactly what it's going to be. But the notion, especially for one like myself who's a writer, and who considers his words very, very carefully before setting them down, it is obscene and unacceptable.
The book signing signals an end to a very successful outing.